He's editor-in-chief of Breitbart News and a New York Times best-selling author. And on this podcast, he brings deep research, prescient analysis, and world-class guests. He's Alex Marlow, and this is The Alex Marlow Show.
Welcome to The Alex Marlow Show. I'm glad you're here. We've got fat generals we're going after today. We got Hakeem Jeffries in a sombrero and a Mexican mustache. Is there a Mexican mustache? President Trump thinks so. We've got Dinesh D'Souza coming in to talk about his new movie, Dragon's Prophecy. It's going to be a great show. We've got a lot to do. Government shutdown on the horizon, which isn't great, but it's exciting. And we like content here. We're a pro-content show. Before I get into it, I want to tell you about my friends at Freedom Chat. You got to take out your phone right now. If you guys don't have it, I know you guys are responding to this. This is a good call to action here because I'm seeing the Alex Marlow channel fill up on Freedom Chat. I am moving all of my messaging to Freedom Chat. This is a end-to-end encrypted messaging app, competes with WhatsApp and Signal, but this is owned by conservatives and it is committed to privacy, something that is very foreign for a lot of people who grew up in the hyper internet age. I'm a big privacy guy, a pro-privacy person. This is the next generation messaging app for people who still believe privacy and free speech matters and like to support conservative businesses instead of supporting people who are just Silicon Valley tech titans and have enough money and power already. Ahem, Mark Zuckerberg, who owns WhatsApp. So this team launched their alpha version. It's available today on Android and iPhone. And a lot of apps say they're free, but they're just selling your data. If it's free, usually you're the product. In this case, your messages are end-to-end encrypted. They're not stored on servers, and even screenshots are blocked. So try it. You got to try to take a screenshot. It doesn't work. No tracking, no mining, no listening in, just private communications the way it ought to be. And something I like a lot, Freedom Chat, not part of big tech. It's built by people that I trust, and I believe you should too. So I've created my own channel over there, Freedom Chat. It's at Alex Marlow, at Alex Marlow. You can subscribe, and I'm putting exclusive content there, which I'm going to continue to increase as the show expands. And I do think one day soon, maybe we'll end up chatting along as the show goes on with you on the app. So I think that's kind of something I want to work into, but we're building up to that. So I'll share exclusive stuff over there. But the main thing is you get this end-to-end encrypted chat, and it replaces some of these other apps which are not truly private and are owned by some of the bad guys. Freedomchat.com, freedomchat.com, where freedom still means something. Download the app wherever you get your apps. All right, let's start with Fat Generals. Pete Hegseth assembling all the admirals, all the generals at Quantico, Virginia. Not a big place. This is a big, high-powered thing, and people are going, what is he doing? How can he get everyone out there? And let's see what he was up to.
With physical fitness and appearance. If the Secretary of War can do regular, hard PT, so can every member of our joint force. Frankly, it's tiring to look out at combat formations, or really any formation, and see fat troops. Likewise, it's completely unacceptable to see fat generals and admirals in the halls of the Pentagon and leading commands around the country and the world. It's a bad look. It is bad, and it's not who we are. So whether you're an airborne ranger or a chairborne ranger, a brand new private or a four-star general, you need to meet the height and weight standards and pass your PT test. And as the chairman said, yes, there is no PT test. But today, at my direction, every member of the joint force at every rank is required to take a PT test twice a year, as well as meet height and weight requirements twice a year, every year of service. Also today, at my direction, every warrior across our joint force is required to do PT every duty day. Should be common sense. I mean, most units do that already.
We are making America handsome again. I love this stuff. Look, it just, if we're going to be an excellent country, if we're going to have an excellent fighting force, then does it make sense to have fat generals walking around? And it just, you think about Lloyd Austin with his mask on and remember when he had the face shield, he had the plastic shield over his mask, deeply unhealthy. And then remember he got sick and was in the hospital and didn't tell anyone. And then you got Fatso Mark Milley. Like, it's just not a great look for us. It is to have our generals out there and they look like they, couldn't do a push-up. Is not a great look. And especially for the troops themselves, people who are out there deployed in combat. Wouldn't you want the other people you are serving alongside be in peak physical condition? I don't understand why we're expected to be in peak physical condition to compete in sports ball, but not in the military where we're trying to theoretically save the lives of our fellow countrymen. So I like this idea because, first of all, the psychological expectation that we're going to be excellent. This is the equivalent, in my view, of like broken windows policing. It's actually better than that, but it's sort of at a minimum. You could view it as broken windows policing. We're going to clean up graffiti. We're going to stop people from jumping turnstiles. And I think it's going to elevate the whole group. I think that effect is going to be big, because if we're supposed to be excellent, then we also can't be fat if you're supposed to be doing military stuff, which is a physical component. And then I think the leadership, if the leadership is way out of shape and are slobs, then that's not a great look either. So I like this, and I like that he's making America the handsome again as well, because look, let's face it, it's a selfless act to look great. If you look great, you don't look at yourself all day unless you're one of these TikTok, Instagram people, the duck face, doing the selfies all day. Unless you're doing that, you're not looking at yourself all day. Other people have to look at you. So looking your best is a nice courtesy to your fellow man. So I dig it. I got one more Hegseth clip. You're going to like this one too.
No more identity months, DEI offices, dudes in dresses. No more climate change worship. No more division, distraction, or gender delusions. No more debris. As I've said before, and will say again, we are done with that shit.
I love this guy. I love this guy. It's just so it's amazing to think about our bench. And if you think about who's most likely to be the next president, it's probably JD, maybe Rubio's a close second. But then think about the next tier. Then you got the Tulsis, and you got the Hegseths, and you got the Don Jr. Like we get so many people. We're 10 deep at a minimum for who could step in right away and be a great leader for this country. So it's just very cool to see it. And I like it. I like this plain spoken attitude, especially in a military setting, because I'll tell you what, if you're a young man and you're thinking, what do I do? I'm in my 20s. Like, what do I do the next 10 years of my life? And you see, this is the leader of our armed forces. You're thinking, I could go work for that guy. And that's very profound. It's the real recruiting tool, because this is how a lot of masculine alpha type guys they respond to this stuff. So it's very good, and it's real. He's right about all this stuff. So very cool. I like it. I love it even. So great stuff. I'm not sure why you had to fly everyone to Quantico, and I guess do people have to fly in? I think so. So to do all that, it could have been a Zoom call from what it sounds like, but I don't care. It sounds good. Trump spoke as well, and he said that we're reawakening the warrior spirit. That's what he told the group. I got a quote from him. In this effort, we're a team, and so my message to you today is simple. I am with you. I support you, and as president, I have your back 100%. We're going to make our military stronger, tougher, faster, fiercer, and more powerful than it's ever been before. Peace through strength all the way. Great stuff. Great vision. I love it. Absolutely love it. So really enjoyable. Also kind of enjoyable, though I don't know for sure, is that we are on the verge of a government shutdown. We'll be hours away when the show comes out, because the Democrats are insisting on all sorts of handouts for illegal aliens. They want more spending. They don't want to continue the current spending rate. We need to cut the spending rate, but they don't even want to continue it. They want to add more stuff. And they feel like, thanks to their friends and allies in the establishment media, that they can get away with it. So this is what our president of the United States put out on Truth Social. This is one of his truth bombs. Check this one.
Look, guys, there's no way to sugarcoat it. Nobody likes Democrats anymore. We have no voters left because of all of our woke trans bullshit.
This is from the real Donald Trump X account. It's a AI Chuck Schumer, and next to him is Hakeem Jeffries wearing a sombrero. And I don't know do Mexican people actually wear these sombreros? Email me aloha@alexmarlowe.com. I think my Mexico days ended when we started our Cartel Chronicles initiative like 10 years ago at Breitbart. So I don't think I've been in Mexico since then. But I would doubt it if they actually wore this. And this mustache is absurd. It's so great, because this would be called racist. And we spend the next 3 days talking about what a racist President Trump is. And now, because ABC, CNN, NBC, et cetera, don't care, now we can just do it and let them have be stressed out about it, and we're just going to enjoy it. So really fun.
Not even black people want to vote for us anymore. Even Latinos hate us. So we need new voters. And if we give all these illegal aliens free health care, we might be able to get them on our side so they can vote for us. They can't even speak English, so they won't realize we're just a bunch of woke pieces of shit, at least for a while, until they learn English and they realize they hate us too.
I voted for this. I absolutely voted for this. It's so fun. And I've been saying this, Trump is one of the funniest people on earth. And the fact that he wants to have a great time while he's leading is great. And it's so effective. It's so attention getting. And the core content, you might not like the tone. You might not like the putting the swear words into Chuck Schumer's mouth. You might not like the sombrero or the mustache. I happen to like that stuff, but you might not like it. But I'll tell you, the content is clear. Anyone who watches this is going to be reminded that that is exactly what the Democrats are doing. They're trying to buy votes by pandering to illegal aliens. That's what they want to do because they feel like that is their best chance of trying to get voters. And it's not working on most Americans, but it might work on enough that they feel like they can maintain some ground if Trump struggles. So that's their electoral choice, is all the woke stuff and all the handouts. So it's just such a relief that we have this climate now where the media has been so neutralized. Those of you, I will point this out on my YouTube, and I've also linked it pretty recently on my X page if you scroll down a little bit. But my speech is going through the direct line between Charlie Kirk and Andrew Breitbart and all of our role in the current media environment and the various media wars we're in. It's getting a really nice response online. But I point that out because I do mention how the establishment media has been totally neutralized, and I update you on some of my thinking on that. Which will be, some of you will find refreshing if you were someone who may have read Breaking the News a few years ago. So you'll enjoy that. My other speech that I gave to Pastor Alan Jackson's congregation just over a week ago was on Israel, and specifically what my friend Charlie Kirk thought about Israel, which is also in the news today because this letter to Charlie was released by from Charlie to Benjamin Netanyahu was released. It was leaked by the New York Post. Everyone that I've talked to, and I have a lot of sources in this regard, assumes Israel leaked it, which is kind of a betrayal, but also maybe helpful to them overall. So I think I understand it. They're in a war. But online, you see a lot of people, the Candace Owenses of the world, trying to speak on Charlie's behalf, on his viewpoints on Israel, and try to act as though the donors were really brutal to him about Israel. And if he wasn't towing the line for Israel and wanting America to fight wars on behalf of Israel, they're going to pull money. Charlie was very independent, and I think his backers understood that. But he did have this unenviable task of trying to broker peace within the MAGA movement where a lot of people just really don't like Israel. I'm a very pro-Israel person. I make a pretty strong case for Israel in this speech, which I'm recommending all of you check out. But overall, I understand that ultimately we want to be a huge tent and we want to win elections. That's the main thing. And Charlie was trying to piece all those pieces together. It was a really tough job. He was under a lot of pressure from a lot of sides to do that. And I think he was doing really well. And I'm nervous about this going forward for the movement because he was a unique person who was able to have a nice dialogue with all sides. Like for me, for example, I'm a Zionist 100% pro-Israel guy. I'm pretty reasonable, but I don't know how far I would get if I was talking to Candace Owens about this subject. Like, I don't know how far we'd get before we'd start irritating each other. So I don't know. Maybe I should try. But Charlie was doing this. But the most important thing to note is that a lot of people are acting as though he turned on Israel. You guys need to read this letter because my speech, which was very well received, and I gave over a week ago, it was largely based on this letter because I'd read it. As I noted, I communicated with Charlie specifically on the topic of Israel every day. I was in a very small group chat with him, literally called Saving Civilization. That's what it was called because Charlie had grandiose ideas that maybe perhaps we could save Western civilization with the combination of the work of America, Israel, Jews, and Christians. We all work together. We could save Western civilization. And that's what he was determined to do. And he was a committed Israel supporter. Now, he had a very strong criticism that was conveyed in the letter, which I mentioned in the speech, which is that he thought Israel is doing an absolute garbage job in the PR war, trying to fight online to try to dispel disinformation and to put out good things that they're doing to try to arm their supporters when they're engaged in online fisticuffs. And so he thinks the PR battle, and this goes beyond, Twitter and stuff like that, but just having spokespeople who are out there who are sharing good stuff that Israel is doing and making clear how villainous and evil Hamas is, he didn't think they were doing a super effective job at that. And he felt a little bit stranded because he would show up on campuses and he would get challenged with things and he had to do all this homework to try to come up with some retort that made sense. Whereas he felt like if Israel is going to prosecute this war, they should give his supporters, Israel should give its supporters more to work with than they were. And he said, you're capable of this. He was a guy who believed in excellence and thought you could have excellence. And he had this great analogy at the end where he said that how could you have the same group of people who pulled off the beeper attack, the most sophisticated, nuanced attack you could ever have when it comes to war fighting, something that takes engineers and spies and over a year to build this up. But then you can't have a decent online PR strategy. You can't have a few spokespeople who can make a compelling case on your own behalf to the public. So he didn't accept that, and he challenged Netanyahu in this letter, 7-page letter that New York Post published, to do better at this regard. And so he maintained that he loved Israel and was a supporter of Israel, but was critical of the way they were fighting some of the PR battles that they were facing, which was leaving people like him, I think, in a bad spot. People who were prominent pro-Israel spokespeople, particularly a younger guy who's speaking to younger audiences that just don't get Israel. And they don't love that we spend so much money on Israel and time on Israel. So why do we spend so much money and time on it? It's a longer question, but in terms of I think we spend something like 5% of I'll talk to Dinesh about this, but I think we spend like 5% of our foreign aid goes to Israel, it's a good chunk, but we spend so much on other countries that are just not the allies that Israel is. They don't preside over the Holy Land. They don't help us improve our military tech the way Israel does. They don't have satellites for a lot of our Silicon Valley tech hubs, which Tel Aviv has, and they aren't the only lone democracy in the Middle East standing up against the Islamist threat, which is encroaching on the West. So all these are very relevant, and they're worth some deeper level of cooperation than your typical country. But ultimately, it's not really on a Charlie Kirk or even an Alex Marlow to make this point. It's really on the state of Israel to do it. So that was Charlie's critique, but maintain pro-Israel stance, and that should dispel any sort of speculation about what he thought, because it's now in paper. You could see it written out from Charlie to the prime minister, and you should all check it out. But it is, I got a feeling it's not going to stop the dialogue. But it's interesting because I gave this speech on this letter. I had no idea it was going to leak out a few days later. So, but makes my speech a little more relevant and hopefully interesting to all of you who are interested in checking it out. So it's on my YouTube page, and also you can find it on my X page. But you should be subscribing on YouTube. It's a great way to get additional show content, isolating some of my favorite parts, and make sure you know when the podcast is coming your way. Also, the advertisers like it when they see a lot of subscribers. So keep doing that. That's good. That's helpful to me. So again, I got on a big tangent, but we are keeping an eye on that shutdown. And the only real update is this Trump tweet with Jeffries in the Mexican outfit. So the left and the media are freaking out, but again, they have no power, and that's great. So now we control them. We can make fun of them. I mentioned Israel also because we've got the peace deal that we focused on a lot of yesterday's show, giving our instant takes. I brought in Joel Pollack to give his instant take, which a lot of people liked. And it seems like, and this is kind of blowing my mind here, but a huge positive response. So Trump's plan for Gaza has won support of the Arab and Muslim world for the most part. Even the Palestinian Authority is apparently behind it. Joel Pollack's written this up for us at Breitbart, saying Trump's proposal to end the Gaza war has not only won support from Israel, but also from the Arab and Muslim world, which oppose the plan. The 20-point plan would fulfill Israel's goal of freeing the remaining hostages, as well as disarming Hamas and removing it from power. It also offers the prospect of a Palestinian state if Hamas complies with the plan and the Palestinian Authority agrees to sweeping reforms of its policies and anti-Israel culture. And later in the article, he notes that Hamas is kicking the idea around, still thinking about it. So obviously Hamas is only going to be in power if there is a war, if they could portray themselves as the victims, if the people try to get aid, which Hamas can steal. They're a terrorist organization backed by Iran. That's what they are. And we'll get into a little bit of the history of Hamas with Dinesh when he comes in a second. But it is, they're studying the plan allegedly. And they haven't responded yet, but pretty much everyone else is on board. So you think about where this could go. If really, we could bring peace to the Middle East for the first time in decades. I mean, it would be so remarkable. And we're just days away from October the 7th. So start talking about Gaza Lago, start talking about expanding the Abraham Accords. Could be pretty exciting. It could be pretty exciting, and it could be a real feather in the cap of Donald Trump, and it could hopefully make it so that we don't talk about Israel all the time. Which, look, I'm happy to do a lot of Israel talk just because I like Israel and I think it's essential to the West. But it really is a lot. All right, one other update from something we brought up yesterday. A boycott has broken out for the Super Bowl. I talked a little bit about Bad Bunny, who is the cross-dressing performance artist who sings only in Spanish and hates America, who is tapped as the Super Bowl halftime show. Obviously, this is a troll from the NFL and Jay-Z, who basically runs the NFL halftime show to trigger MAGA. This is, the ultimate Obama bro, Jay-Z. They're trying to make us upset. So you get this sort of gender fluid, gender bender type guy who doesn't sing in English to performing at an event that ostensibly is for middle America. But it's not. They're marketing themselves. They want to pull in people who aren't going to watch for the football game. They want to pull in people who just want to see the entertainment value and maybe appeal to an international audience because they want to expand the NFL beyond America. That's what they're trying to do. But it's interesting because I'm so numb to some of this stuff because I knew this. They always do this. The NFL does. The NFL is always disappointed in this regard. I haven't been into the NFL since the Kaepernick stuff. I've not watched the NFL regularly. I never fully forgave them. Sorry. We got to get Erica Kirk to come in here and talk to me about forgiveness because I haven't fully forgiven the NFL for all the Kaepernick nonsense, the Black Lives Matter stuff. It was too much for me. So I've definitely not watched a full game, maybe a Super Bowl just because I have to for news, but I've not just sat down and watched a football game from the NFL since then. And because they still do this stuff, they still go woke. And with the NFL, they've gone woke and made a lot of money. So sorry, it's not go woke, go broke all the time. Sometimes it is. Sometimes you go woke, you make a lot of money. So that is what the NFL's posture is. But I'll tell you, maybe I should be more fired up. I re-X this on my X page. But Jason Whitlock, who I just met a week or so ago, who's a really interesting guy online who seems to bring everything back to Jesus and he does it in a really effective way. He was just going wild on. I didn't set the clip aside because it got some bad words in it. But he was saying this is truly demonic, and it's the putting Bad Bunny out there is clearly designed to groom people, to groom our babies. They're preying on us. They're all about trying to get us into the gender bender trans stuff. It's like he makes a compelling case. So maybe it's even worse than I thought. I just have such low expectations for the NFL that why wouldn't they do a drag show at halftime? I mean, that's what it feels like that's always what was coming from the NFL. And they're so powerful that they can just do whatever they want and get away with it. So that's where we are. So, but a big boycott apparently is happening. What's going to be effective? Is it going to be effective? I don't know. We had a boycott, by the way, of Disney. They lost apparently 1.7 million subscribers a week after suspending Jimmy Kimmel. This is so cool because Jimmy Kimmel doesn't have 1.7 million viewers, I don't think. I mean, maybe he does barely, but I don't know how many people are just consciously, I'm putting on Kimmel. Kimmel's on. How many Kimmel fans are there really out there? And yet Disney saw this huge exodus of people right after the announcing that Kimmel was going to get pulled, and they put Kimmel back on. And I wonder if that is the worst case scenario for ABC Disney, where maybe a lot of the woke guys are gone and maybe they won't resubscribe because we're all overpaying for streaming too. I got to tell you, I pay for 5 or 6 different streaming things. It's a huge ripoff. There's 1 or 2 that I pay for that I almost never use. It is just, and they're very expensive. And I'm at a certain level of my life where I feel like if I ever get a night off where I can watch something, I don't want to have to log in and subscribe. I want to just have the thing available to me. But I think the average person is offended by waste, and I'm offended by waste too. You know what they're so tricky though, like Netflix. I've canceled Netflix so many times because I don't think I watch anything on Netflix. I almost never do. And then somehow someone in my house will resubscribe. And I don't know how they do. They do it so easily. Like, I feel like, didn't I just cancel this? And then just all of a sudden we'll be subscribed again. Anyway, so let's see. So Disney could have really blew that one. That's why I kept saying. So win-win. If Kimmel comes back, no one cares that he's back anymore. He's not relevant. He's still not going to have a good show. He's still pandering to a handful of left-wing people, making them feel good about themselves, letting them rub themselves to Kimmel. So, all right, cool. So there's that. Also in the just track and go woke, go broke stuff, General Motors is now slamming the brakes. That's a nice pun from the Wall Street Journal. On their EV ambitions, they want to have only EV cars. General Motors is deeply connected to Biden world. I call Joe Biden, I actually call it in my book, Breaking Biden, I call it President Motors as opposed to General Motors because it really is so tied in with Joe Biden. I'm going to go long on the show today, so I won't elaborate too much today, but I break this all down in Breaking Biden, which is, you guys got to get the whole universe of Marlowe investigative research if you want the whole picture, if you want the whole context of every show. But very tied into Biden world, so deeply Democratic. And there is a big push there about this $7,500 EV tax credit, which might expire. Ford and GM are scrambling to try to find loopholes. I think this is really why Elon Musk and Trump had a falling out, is that Musk, I still think he's got a lot of businesses, but I think his best one is probably Tesla, the one with the most potential. I mean, if we somehow get to Mars, I guess SpaceX could have him beat, but I don't buy it that's a real thing. It feels like a showboat sort of thing, which it's cool, and cool's important. We want to have cool, but I don't really buy we're going to Mars. But we do have these cars, these Teslas, and they benefit greatly from the $7,500 tax credit, and that's going away. And I think Musk thought he could convince Trump to leave it on, and he has not. So now GM and Ford need to reposition themselves, and they're just saying we're not going full electric anymore. We don't buy the future is electric. We think the future, get this, at President Motors, is the V8 engine. V8, that's a big engine. That's a big engine. I can tell you, I got a couple big cars. Only one of them's got the V8 in it. One of them's still got the V6, and it's a big car. Like that is something. That's a big engine. So really cool that's where we're headed, because I'm a combustion engine guy. I like it better. I like it better than the electric. Never had the electric. Never bought into the electric. Okay, let's see. What else do I want to do? I want to do a little check-in here on where the Democrats' vision for America is. I pulled a bunch of clips on where they're at because I want to show you the alternative to Pete Hegseth saying the DEI is going away. We're making the generals handsome again, and Donald Trump saying we're going to build the military, make it the strongest ever, and then let's see what the left is offering us, and we'll do it via the next mayor of New York, Zohran Mamdani. Check this out on the Breakfast Club radio show.
I've proposed is that we raise $10 billion to pay for our entire economic agenda and start to Trump-proof our city, because we know he'll use federal funding as leverage over this city. And we will do so in two key ways. The first is to match the state's top corporate tax rate to that of New Jersey. We are at 7.25%. They're at 11.5%. Corporations can pay it over there. They can pay it over here. And the beauty of it is that it doesn't just apply to corporations headquartered in New York City. Because when you say this, people will say, well, they're going to go to Florida. Mm-hmm. Wherever you are headquartered, as long as you do business in the state of New York, you are taxable for that corporate tax. We're talking about corporations that are making millions of dollars, not in revenue, but in profit. And the second is taxing the top 1% of New Yorkers. We're talking about people who make $1 million a year or more, taxing them just by a flat 2% tax increase. And I know if 50 Cent is listening, he's not going to be happy about this. Mm-hmm. He tends to not like this tax policy, but I want to be very clear. This is about $20,000 a year. It's a rounding error. And all of these things together, they make every New Yorker's life better, including those who are actually getting taxed.
Now, you also want to cut.
It's good for you to get that taxation going. He speaks very well. He looks very happy while he's doing it. But all of this is nonsense economically. And that's why the power of communication and persuasion is so big. And I think this is probably what drew me into this field in general in my life, is because you can sell these bad ideas very effectively. It sounds pretty good on paper, but New Yorkers are already complaining about a lot of empty storefronts and how there's too few businesses that are showing up in New York because it's already so expensive to operate in New York. The tax on businesses is going to force more businesses to close. That's what's going to happen. So we don't even know if he's going to end up getting more revenue in the end. Maybe he'll get some, but what he's going to do is he's going to force a lot of businesses out of the city, particularly smaller businesses, particularly businesses that are already still catching up from the Biden inflation. So these independent businesses are the ones who are not going to have those deep pockets where they can wear this. And others are just going to be so irritated, they're not going to do as much business or any business there at all. So what ends up happening, this is how John Carney phrased it to me, you get less of what you tax. So if you tax something more, you get less of it. So that's what he's actually doing, is saying you're going to get less business, less commerce in New York. And for those who are doing business, yeah, New York will get a larger percentage return in the government. So, but is that actually going to add to the pie economically? I'm going to bet no, because it's never worked before. But I'll tell you, sounds pretty good the way he phrases it on talk radio. The next thing, the millionaire's tax. This is the thing that the left is with their class war stuff. They have to do the class war because they feel like politically it makes sense. Even people on the right do it sometimes because it is nice to demonize the rich from a political standpoint. But here's the thing. These millionaires, billionaires, whatever it is, they're the most mobile people around. So you raise taxes on them. They're the ones who are good. Fly down to Florida, fly down South Carolina. And you don't have to go that far. They could go to New Jersey, even Long Island. Like a lot of them live in Long Island anyway. So if they're not a New York resident, they don't have to make their main residence in New York. A lot of the richest people. And not to mention that acting like if you're living $1 million in New York, which is a lot of money, but it's super expensive there. And if you've got a lot of the rent super high, and if you got big student loans to get to that $1 million, and you get a lot of support like childcare, et cetera, using private schools because you can't use school system. And you might not be happy with another $20,000 out of your pocket. Like that might not work for you when you can just exit Manhattan and live somewhere else. So he's just the way Carney phrased it to me, this is a millionaire deportation scheme, which works from a political standpoint because it's all class warfare. So let's see if he's smart enough to make any adjustments when he wins. Assuming he's going to win. And if he does, I'm curious to see if he'll make any adjustments when this stuff doesn't work out. But I don't know if he'll have enough time. So look, this is why I endorsed him, because I think Cuomo, who was responsible for executing all of these elderly people by sending sick coronavirus patients and trapping them in buildings with uninfected people, the people who are the most vulnerable to coronavirus. I feel like that was disqualifying. And even though I wish Curtis Lew had a chance, but he doesn't seem to have a chance, and everyone hated Eric Adams. So Mamdani was going to be the guy. So let's do it. Let's do accelerationism, and let's see how bad this gets there. And let's see what how people react to it. This is such it would be great if we could have conservative governance in New York. It'd be great if we could have a moderate in New York. It would be great if someone who cared about common sense. But that's not realistic right now. What is realistic right now is that we can let the left see this left wing, let them see this socialism experiment. He's even using the language of socialism openly. So that's why I like to show you some of what the left is really, what they really think. And if they don't feel like they're really going to be threatened by Republicans, then they will speak freely, and then they will speak the mind, and we will see how backwards and bad their ideas are. So here's another example. Check out Joy Reid, who was sprung by MSNBC and has gotten even nuttier since she left.
Is that if you go back before the 20th century, there were no income taxes, there were no regulations on business. You could earn as much money as you want, leave 100% of it to your children with no taxes. Right. That's the world they want back. And to get it back, they need society to change. They need people to be less modern. They need people to want fewer things.
Yeah, so they want to take us back to no income tax, no regulation, earn what you want, and your family inherits everything. That's how they define fascism. That's what they think the Nazis are doing. And why is it so bad to most people? Because they think that charity should come from the government, that you should not have autonomy over your own money, that you should not have autonomy over your own jobs. They think the government solves more problems than it fixes. They solves more problems than it creates. And those of us on the right, particularly on the sort of libertarian leaning side of the right, we think the government tends to cause more problems. So the government gets almost nothing right. And yet the left still feels like the solution is more regulation, more taxation. And when you earn money and then you try to pass it on to your own progeny that you created with the help of God, the government is entitled to tax it again, even though they already taxed it when you made the money. That's how their viewpoint is for the world. So it's very godless, and it's very anti-science when it comes to the economics of it. So, and this is where their heads are at right now while we're trying to forge Middle East peace, make the military stronger, and crack down on illegal aliens. So it's just great. It's just great. We keep running up the score. Speaking of the fascism stuff, this is Randy Weingarten, who's promoting a book calling all of us fascism. She's one of the most powerful teachers unions heads, even though she's childless. Check out her language. So let's see if it's improved since the Trantifa guy murdered my friend Charlie.
There is a reason why in Norway, when the Nazis took over Norway, that's why I'm wearing this paperclip. I wear two things now: the American flag, nobody can take patriotism away from me, and a paperclip. What did the teachers in Norway do when there was the Nazi occupation? They started wearing paperclips.
So who's trying to take her patriotism away from her? I mean, we know she doesn't like this country, but she can wear a pin and claim that she does. I mean, that's fine. Like, we don't care about that. But she's saying we're all Nazis. And that's really important, because if you call us Nazis, that is the green light to murder us. And some people are going to see it that way. And that's how they feel like they're getting energy on their side, is to call us Nazis and fascists, even though we're not. We want you to keep more of your money. We want smaller government. We want less regulation. We'd like a strong military, and if our local, state, and city governments are not willing to enforce our laws, like immigration laws, try to lock up the bad guys so that the citizens are punished, then maybe Trump will do what he can to try to make sure our laws are enforced. But if that's their whole definition of what it means to be a Nazi, it's it's so dangerous, and it's these people, we need to take them seriously, because they're trying to kill us. They are. They killed my friend Charlie. They killed him. They killed him. So, all right. I got way more clips I got a Don Lemon, I've got a Ezra Klein and Ta-Nehisi Coates. I don't have to say that because the show's going too long. So we'll save that for next time. I want to get in my friend Dinesh here, but it's good. Run Up Score feels good today. It feels like we're making some real progress here, thanks to the great agenda from President Trump. But we could get in the shutdown mode, and then we got to track how it goes. The messaging here is key. The Democrats have always won the messaging war on shutdowns. I don't know if they will this time. I'm optimistic that they won't, but they're the ones who are creating the shutdown. And just think about how it used to be whenever there's a government shutdown. It would be, everyone's going to die the second the government shuts down. And now the Democrats are bringing about a shutdown. So remember this, mark this down. Everyone was going to die because the government shutting down for 5 minutes. And it's only part of the government, but it doesn't matter. Everyone's dead. That's how it used to be. And then now the Democrats are bringing about a shutdown. So it's kind of historic and big. All right, more on that tomorrow. Let's bring in Dinesh, and thank you to Misty, and thanks to John Cassio post clips for us. But you're not going to want to miss this interview with Dinesh. We go deep. We're going Bible. We're going biblical archaeology. We're going into Israel. It's going to be fun. Check this out. All right. Those of you who've been with me for a long time know that I've long been an admirer of Dinesh D'Souza, who is one of the brightest minds we have on the right. And he's done something really smart in the last decade or so, which is he's pivoted a lot of his career towards filmmaking, because it is the most powerful medium, I think, to get out the message. Dinesh, I got to follow in your footsteps one day, but he's, of course, an author and podcaster with me on the Salem Podcast Network, wherever you get your podcast, the Dinesh D'Souza Show. Always excellent. But we're here to talk about the film that I've been talking about a little bit on the show, which is The Dragon's Prophecy, thedragonsprophecyfilm.com. It's in theaters October 6th and 8th. And then it'll be on DVD and streaming after that. But I want to fill up the theaters, and it's worth it. This is a very timely, interesting, and informative movie about Israel and really the aftermath of October the 7th and where we stand, but also the deep history and the biblical, I would say, evidence for Jesus Christ, for the origins of the Christian faith, and for a deep and beautiful connection with the Jewish people who are there now. Dinesh, really well done. I got to watch it last night, and I learned so much. It is upsetting at times. It's also very illuminating at other times. But I'm going to start with the big picture. What made you feel like this is the project right now for you to take on? And maybe describe in your own words, what is the project?
The project here is to conduct a sort of investigation, not just a political investigation, but a moral and a spiritual investigation, to see if the events that are happening over there in Israel, the war with Hamas, the wider global jihadi project, is that something that can be situated within the landscape of biblical prophecy? And can these biblical narratives be validated by biblical archaeology? So this is, as you know, Alex, a bit of a departure from me. My other films have really all been about the meaning of America. But here I begin with October 7th. I begin with a lot of footage of October 7th that people have never seen. This is just part of my standard filmmaking strategy. I like to put you on the scene. And isn't it remarkable that a lot of that footage is taken by Hamas? So you're not even seeing it from the Israel side. It's like you're on a motorcycle, you've got a GoPro on your head, you're riding in with the terrorists across the fence into the kibbutzes of Israel. I mean, It's quite startling stuff. And then I want to look at all of this from a biblical angle and ask whether October 7th was in some ways a biblical event. This is where Jonathan Cahn comes in, his book, The Dragon's Prophecy, very provocative claims about October 7th and its precedent in the Old Testament. So all of this stuff is, I think, unfurled in a pretty interesting way in this film.
Yeah, it does. And I want to touch on so much of that and expand on it for the audience. But it does open with really brutal October 7th footage that is just flat out murdering and celebration. A lot of Allahu Akbar chants. There's a chilling reveal that I think is fresh in the show where a Hamas terrorist calls his father to brag about all the Jews he killed, and the father's elated by it, which is just, it's truly demonic. One of the Hamas terrorists says in the film that the devil took over me at one point before he committed some of his atrocities. Dinesh, this connects with a lot of the themes I've been talking about on the show recently, really since that murder, those murders of the children as they prayed in Minnesota, and then what we saw in North Carolina, and then what we saw with Charlie Kirk's murder, and then what we saw over the weekend, the Mormon Church. It just really does feel like the only explanation for this for me is it's a satanic presence that's here. That comes through a lot in the film. It makes me wonder if we're really at the end times after all. It's
well,
I
don't know. I don't try to do a blow by blow of the end times, but I do think people right after Charlie Kirk's assassination talking about a spirit of renewal.
Yeah.
I want this film to be a part of that. I think also as we flash our minds back to, our earlier careers, where we tended to think of the left as a bunch of buffoons, they're misguided, we need to educate them. I think we underestimated the element of just moral evil, the malevolence of it all. I think we're now much more alert to it. And if you look at the cultural left and some of its tactics in this country, there's a violent and terroristic side to that. Look at all the perpetrators of the Charlie Kirk, and I say perpetrators because it appears that there might have been a larger ring that at least was in the know, if not involved. And their tactics resemble those of Hamas terrorists, or people who do murder on behalf of Palestine, like the guy who shot those two young people outside the museum in Washington, D.C. So the film is in one way fully immersed in current events. It's got Netanyahu in it. It's got Tucker Carlson in it. At the same time, it's unfurling themes that are very timeless and really go back to the very beginning.
Yeah, absolutely. All right, so let's talk about Jonathan Cahn, who I know is very popular. I always see him on bestseller list, but I haven't read any of his work. Explain to me the origin story with the Dragon's Prophecy.
Yeah, so my wife and I became very interested in biblical archaeology because to us, we know that there are all these major figures in the Bible, not just people like Pontius Pilate, but go further back, Jeremiah, Isaiah, further back, King David. Now, these people for centuries were in the Bible, but only in the Bible. There was no non-biblical authentication of them until now. In the last 25 years or so, amazing discoveries in biblical archaeology, stones and tablets and inscriptions and seals all coming out of the ground and ratifying that, here are the ruins of David's palace, and I'm standing in them in the film. And here's a seal, and it has the name of Isaiah on it. And Pontius Pilate was a real guy. And in fact, there's a stone inscription that carries his actual title. So the Bible is being verified in remarkable ways, the historicity of it. And not only that, the archaeology demonstrates the presence of the Jews in their ancestral homeland, going back thousands of years. So think about what that means for people who say things like, well, the Jews are colonizers. I mean, how do you colonize your own land? This is like accusing the Indians of colonizing India. It makes absolutely no sense. Now, the Jews had left voluntarily, packed up and gone. You could say, well, they abandoned the place, but no. I mean, they were pushed out, they were driven out, and then somewhat miraculously, 2,000 years later, they return. They revive the Hebrew language. They celebrate the same festivals. They eat the same food. They worship the same God. I mean, this is a sort of, even viewed from a secular point of view, it's kind of a miracle. And part of the premise of this film really is that the war, we talk about a spiritual war. We don't often identify the combatants of that war, but the combatants are really God and the devil. And Kahn's point, which I think is very ingenious, that if God is going to resurrect his people, the Jews, bring them back, the devil is going to try to do the same thing. The devil is a great imitator and inverter of God. And then Khan talks about how Palestinian and Philistine, these are actually the same word. No one's saying that they're genetically the same people, but it's the same word and they use the same tactics. If I can just give one example, it's, Samson, this sort of hero of the Bible. He represents the strength of Israel. He's captured by the Philistines. He's blinded in much the same way Israel was blinded on October 7th. He's dragged back where? To Gaza. The Bible names Gaza. So the Philistines are in what we now call the Gaza Strip. Right. And the Bible says that Samson was stripped, and the people of Gaza said, bring him to us that he may entertain us. And sure enough, right after October 7th, hostages are stripped to the waist, and then they are brought out for public exhibition. People are dancing around them, Allahu Akbar. So Khan makes this striking statement, which got my attention: Samson is the first hostage of Gaza. Wow. And so this is the kind of stuff that's brought out in the film and complements the other things we do, the politics, the biblical archaeology, and so on.
So you call on my friend Eric Metaxas, who's our colleague at Salem, who's a archaeologist and historian of biblical times. He does a great podcast on this network too. And what you guys go through is key archaeological evidence for the Bible, which is overwhelming. So the big question though is there anything that can refute it? Is there anything that can refute the mountain of evidence that for the Bible in archaeological terms?
Well, the answer is no. The skeptics of the Bible will say that there's a lot of things that haven't been proved. Like where's Noah's Ark? Nobody's found the Tower of Babel. Right. And so it is true. You can point to things that haven't been found, but that's really not evidence, is it? No. The question is, have you found anything that is significant and contradicts something important in the Bible? That has never happened. So all the findings, you could say, are in a one-way direction. They support, they ratify, they authenticate the Bible. I'll give one really tiny example. In the book of Jeremiah, the prophet Jeremiah is railing against the king. And the king, whose name is Zedekiah, is kind of worried about it. So he rounds up two of his, assistants, two dudes. One guy is named Jehukal, son of Shelemiah, and the other guy is Gedaliah, son of Pashur. Minor figures in the Bible. They're mentioned like once or twice and then they disappear. And the king says basically, keep an eye on Jeremiah. Make sure he's not causing me too much trouble. Fast forward 2,500 years, and they're digging in Jerusalem, right around the city of David, and a bunch of clay seals come out of the ground, about 30 or 40 of them. One of them, Jehukal, son of Shelemiah. The other one, Gedaliah, son of Pashur. Now think about this. If you wrote the Bible 300 years later, you would have no clue that these people even existed. What this tells you is that the people who wrote that document, that section of the Bible, were quite familiar, not just with Jeremiah, not just with the king, but this would be like saying, name all the interns who are working right now in the White House for Trump and try to do it hundreds of years later. You never could do it. So it shows you the accuracy, the historicity of the biblical account, not just with regard to major figures, but really minor figures. And I could give several other examples like this.
Yeah, so this is really essential. And I want to tie it into the moment that we're in now. You play that famous clip in the film of Ted Cruz and Tucker Carlson talking about that do you support, I guess, the way Tucker phrased it, the secular government of Israel now, is that really biblically literate? And Ted Cruz says yes, and I generally agree with Cruz on this, but I wanted to hear your answer on this, Dinesh, because I know you've given this a lot of thought. What do you say to that argument that if you are you can still have Christian faith and believe in the Bible and not support the current regime in Israel?
Right. So, number one, I think that there's nothing in the Bible that commands us to support every action of the state of Israel. Right. Absolutely not. There's nothing in the Bible that commands us to support every action by Jews. There's nothing in the Bible that even, in a way, commands us to, love the Jews. What anti-Semitism is, in my view, I think we need to be very precise about it because the term has been sometimes promiscuously misused. Sure. Anti-Semitism is applying one moral standard to everybody else and another moral standard to Israel and the Jews. And if you do this in a systematic way, people are rightly going to ask, what are your motives? So let me give you an example of this. So let's say, for example, you think that after 9/11, it was perfectly okay for the United States to go over to the Middle East, but specifically go over to Afghanistan, launch major bombs, not even count the number of civilians killed, because guess what? They attacked us first. Or in Pearl Harbor, the United States declares war on Japan. You can even argue about the atomic bombs, but even if the people who don't like the atomic bombs go, well, we should have done a land invasion. Well, what would the casualties be of that? You couldn't even count them compared to the number of people killed in Pearl Harbor. So when you take that view that that was okay, and 9/11 was okay, but now in October 7th, Israel needs to calibrate the number of civilian casualties so that it doesn't exceed the number that were killed in the original attacks. Well, now you're applying a completely different moral compass to Israel than you would to anyone else. So this is my way of thinking about it. I obviously am interested in the biblical connections. I don't agree with the people who say things like the New Testament cancels out the Old. You know, we have God the Son, the second person of the Trinity, so we don't need God the Father. The Trinity is now down to two people. I mean, there's a little bit of craziness going on here. I don't even know if it's an accurate representation of what they call replacement theology, but if that is replacement theology, I don't think we want any part of it.
Yeah, I always consider if Israel was not there and the current government of Israel wasn't there, which does preside over much of the Holy Land, not all of it, but a lot of the key sites, would things improve? We have an example, Bethlehem, which was under Israel's control, and then now it's not, and now it's less safe, it's less hospitable for Christians, it's economically worse off, it's more crime. So it just feels strongly preferable to Israel in charge of as much of the Holy Land as possible. And yet I do see a lot of Christians online not speaking in those terms. And I was curious if you'd given that some thought.
Well, I mean, I've been to the churches in Israel, I've been to the Church of the Annunciation. It's actually shown in the film. Israel protects these holy sites. There are some Orthodox Jews who don't like at least what they see as Christian proselytization.
Yeah.
They don't like the project to sort of convert the Jews. They're resistant to that. That's a fact. But look, I mean, I look at it in a broader lens, right? And that's this. We give $3.8 billion to Israel. So what's our ROI? What's our return on investment to sort of go CNBC on you here? Well, the answer is they are on the front lines of fighting radical Islam. Yeah. And they know how to do it. I mean, could we have pulled off that pager thing with never? No. And not only that, they're fighting it in Sudan, they're fighting it in Yemen and Turkey and Qatar. The United States has a very bad record on this. I mean, Carter pulled the Persian rug out from under the Shah. That's how we got Khomeini. Radical Islam got its first major state. After 9/11, we expelled the Taliban, but then they came back. We botched the whole thing in Iraq. So when you have somebody else who is on the ground over there, not just doing surveillance, but actually fighting, and you give them 5% of your foreign aid budget, the rest of it, by the way, going to people who give you the middle finger, do absolutely nothing, sit on their butts. So, you know, to me, again, the singular irritation with Israel, when you put all this into context, it's so inexplicable to me. The other thing that's really bad, I think, is it's dividing our side. And it's dividing our side not just ideologically, but generationally. So all of this, I think, is very destructive at a time when we are really rolling forward. Our tanks are moving forward. We're making real gains. Yeah. And now suddenly we have to fight this internecine skirmish.
Yeah, what do you think is the way to get out of it? Because it's such a headache, Dinesh.
I think the way to get out of it is to essentially have a real argument inside of America first about it. So we don't want to have America first debating Israel first. None of us are Israel first, right? What we're discussing is what is the best way to advance America first. So I would argue America first in no way means America only. All countries have friends and enemies in the world. We have allies. Now, I agree, we don't have permanent allies, and sometimes allies turn on you and the situation changes. I would say in the latter part of the 20th century, century, our main interest in the Middle East was oil. We were very dependent on Middle Eastern oil. We're less dependent on Middle Eastern oil now, but guess what? There's a global jihadi project going on. And it's going on in Saudi Arabia, in Egypt, in Pakistan. Those jihadis don't wake up in the morning and worry about Hamas or Palestine. They could care less about that. They're thinking about how do we infiltrate Australia and Canada? How do we take over towns in London? How do we infiltrate the suburbs in the United States and take over school boards? And how do we create 1,000 Ilhan Omars? So this is what we're dealing with. And to take our attention off that ball and act like the real problem is some Mossad guy jumped out of a pipe and shot Charlie Kirk. Come on.
Yeah, exactly. And it's just, it is the distraction that is just, we're doing so much winning. It's a shame that we have to think about this all the time, but we do. And it makes your film incredibly timely because I think it does make you, I just found myself getting even more angry about Hamas and more excited about the prospect of supporting Israel, making sure Israel is strong. But I want to ask about, well, where did Hamas come from? Like, why are they there? Why are they so powerful? And why haven't they been destroyed yet?
The reason is pretty simple. Hamas is a proxy. Hamas is a plaything in the hands of outside forces that are very powerful. And many times people focus on Iran, which has been the primary kind of external belligerent, but we underestimate the power of Qatar, which is the king of, you could call it taqiyya or deception. What Qatar does is they play a double game. They're playing a double game right now. And here's what I mean by the double game. They help to cook up these attacks. Then they immediately present themselves as the mediator that will help to end the problem. Like right now, Qatar has embraced the Trump plan, but supposedly Hamas doesn't. And so everyone in social media is like, well, hopefully Qatar can convince Hamas. No, Qatar and Hamas are going to shut the door and they're both going to say, okay, guess what? What do we do now? What is the best move for us in this situation? So Qatar and Hamas are joined at the hip. The Hamas guys, the top guys all live in high-rise penthouses in Qatar. They eat in five-star restaurants in Qatar. They're bankrolled outside the country. So we have to see Hamas that way. Just as, Ukraine can't fight Russia. I mean, an ant cannot fight an elephant. It can only fight a proxy war if you have lots of other people backing Ukraine. The same is true with Hamas. Hamas cannot fight Israel, but Hamas backed by places, by Yemen, by Sudan, by Turkey, by Iran, by Qatar. Qatar is practicing what the sheikhs all call financial jihad, and they're very influential in America.
They really are, and there's a Muslim Brotherhood connection that you make. There's even a Nazi connection that you make. I won't give it all away because I want people to check out the film. But there's just so much in there. If you want to get arguments, if you want to get history, if you want to start understanding biblical prophecy, which is really all around us. And I think that is, one of the fascinating things. Did you anticipate that you would see so much biblical prophecy in contemporary times when you started the project, Dinesh?
No, I would say, my mind is by and large secular. I'm very reluctant to read the book of Revelation and say, this is going to come first and that's going to come second. I really think the Bible is obscure in those future days or veiled for a good reason. We're not really supposed to know it all. But there are some giant landmarks that stand out. The reconstitution of Israel is certainly one of those. Look, I also think people talk about Israel as the colonizer. Now, right in the middle of Jerusalem, you see on the site of Solomon's temple, right? The holiest site in Judaism and Christianity, right now, right there is an Islamic victory arch called the Dome of the Rock. Sitting right next to it, the Al-Aqsa Mosque. It's almost like Islam has planted a colonial victory arch right in the middle of Jerusalem. In some ways, it's the headquarters of the dragon. It's the headquarters of sort of Satan himself, because what would Satan want to do? What would give him the greatest joy if not occupying the holiest site of Judaism and Christianity? So I don't think one can be blind to those kinds of things because, quite frankly, they're right in front of your very eyes.
Yeah, so I think that's a really, really interesting. And I think I'm like you. I'm a passionate believer in Christ, and I'm committed to my faith deeply. But my mind is mostly secular. I like the way you phrase that. So I tend to rely on others to kind of point out the religious stuff to me, and then I nod my head and hopefully retain some of it. But what do you think? And this is a good spot, I guess. Everyone needs to go see this movie. I can't believe you wouldn't support Dinesh, period. And it's so good. It's so timely. I just can't believe how you nailed the timing of it. 2 nights only in theaters, October 6th and 8th for The Dragon's Prophecy, thedragonsprophecyfilm.com. And then it'll be streaming, but fill up the theaters. Dinesh, where do you want people, when they're coming out of the theater, what do you hoping has changed in people? What do you want to stir in them?
What I want to stir with them in them is this awareness that there is a world behind the world. And that there is a kind of cosmic battle of good and evil going on. And we should increasingly learn to see the things in front of us in America, but also in the Middle East, through that lens.
Yes.
We often ask, and people, evangelical will say, like, what would Jesus do, or what does God want me to do? Let's also think a little bit about what the devil is doing. Like, what's his strategy, right? Let's put a little bit of Machiavellian thinking on here and think, if we were the devil, how would we seek to thwart all this? How would we seek to divide MAGA? How would we seek to take the people of God, which is the Jews, and expel them from the river to the sea? How would we figure out a way to occupy the holiest place in Judaism and Christianity? So God is at work. Yes, the devil is also at work. And so we have, all of us, like, moral choices to make. We have to take a side. And the film makes you do that, but it makes you do that in an informed way. It doesn't tell you which side to take. It shows you what the options are, and it shows you what the stakes are.
Dinesh D'Souza, well done, and I hope this thing's big because you deserve it, and a great person to support. If you're on the fence, how could you be on the fence? You got to check it out. Go to the theaters and go see The Dragon's Prophecy, and check out Dinesh's podcast, The Dinesh D'Souza Show. Thanks, my friend. See you soon.
Really appreciate it. Thank you.